and welcome to Online Business Uncovered. This is episode 149, and today I am joined by business mentor Steve Bridson from the Business Booster Academy. Now, we're going to be talking about the side of business that doesn't get shared enough, the failures, the pivots, and the moments that almost made Steve quit, alongside the successes that made it all worthwhile. Now, this is an honest, no fluff conversation for anyone building a business and wondering if they're doing it right. So join me as we dive into today's episode. Welcome to Online Business Uncovered, the show that lifts the lid on what it really takes to turn your brilliance into digital products, passive income, and time freedom. I am your host, Karen, an online business strategist, course creation expert, and your go-to for building a business that works for you and not the other way around. If you are an ambitious entrepreneur feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or maybe you're just ready for a smarter, more sustainable way to grow, then you're in the right place. Because each week I'll be bringing you inspiring conversations, practical strategies, and step-by-step guidance to help you create scalable, repeatable digital products that sell even while you sleep. So if you're ready to stop trading your time for money, reclaim your time, and finally build a business that gives you the freedom that you deserve, hit subscribe and tune in every Thursday. Let's uncover what's truly possible for you, starting now. Hello and welcome to today's episode. This is the show that helps you turn your expertise into digital products, passive income, and of course, time freedom. I'm your host, Karen, and I really do appreciate you hitting that play button to listen to today's episode. Now, this episode is sponsored by the Digital Creators Community Hub, which is my free community designed to help you kickstart your journey into digital products. Inside, you'll get access to practical tools, resources, and replays of my masterclasses, all created to support you in turning your expertise into a profitable online course, membership, or digital offer. Now, if you're ready to take the first step towards creating your scalable offer, then this is the perfect place to start. You can join for free today. Just head on over to www.sellyourbrillianceonline.com/community. All right, let's head on into today's episode, because today I've got a really special episode for you where I'm talking to business mentor Steve Bridson. So let's jump in and get started. Hello and welcome to Online Business Uncovered. I've got a special episode today because today I am going to be speaking to a business mentor, Steve Bridson, who is the creator and the brains behind the Business Booster Academy. Now, Steve has a wealth of experience in running businesses, and he has ventured into the online business space where he has created his own membership that he is currently growing. So what I thought would be a great idea is to get Steve on the show and to really dive into his experience, his lessons, and where he is right now, because he's got some brilliant nuggets of information to share. So Steve, welcome to the show. I'm really excited you've joined me today. Do you want to start by just introducing yourself to the listeners and telling them about what you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Karen. I appreciate it, and I'm excited about this. So, my background basically, out of university into the family business, worked my way through the family business, became a managing director by the time I was 36, and then started another business at 40, ran that business with my brother for a period of time, and then about 8 years ago I decided that I'd had enough of the industry that I was in. I was doing a lot of networking, saw a lot of people who needed business support, and I would just sort of help them out as you do in conversation and that kind of thing. And then a friend of mine said, why don't you become a business advisor? And I was like, I never really even considered it. So he knew I was looking for a change, and then I went and got myself accredited, and started sort of 2018 was how it all sort of evolved for me. So and up to recently, I was spending all of my time working one-to-one with people, and essentially recognized that there was a need for people to have business support, but actually couldn't afford the one-to-one support. So to give you a rough idea, Karen, business advisors, mentors, coaches, whatever you want to call them, they will charge anywhere up to £2,000 a month. You know, I mean, I'm nowhere near that level. I generally charge people £500 a month because I think people need to be able to afford it. But even so, £500 a month is still a chunk of change for a small business that actually can't afford it. So I found myself saying to a lot of the people that I was working with, I was not repeating myself. You tailor it very much to the individual, but you're sort of saying the same sorts of things over and over again. And I realized that there are certain fundamental problems that people have. And one of those big problems is people go into business for themselves. They have this great idea. They're very good at what they do. But when it comes to actually their business skills, they don't have those. So BBA is all about trying to give people the business skills they need to develop their business. What I wanted to do, I had 3 criteria. Firstly, I wanted to give people who were in small business world, micro business world, an affordable solution. Secondly, I wanted to make it as comprehensive as I possibly could and build a community. And thirdly, I wanted to really support people and actually stop people feeling like they're alone. And so that's what I've tried to create.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely right. I think when people start businesses, often they're being led by the skills and the passion that they have for the thing that they're offering. And then as soon as they start a business, they then got to learn to run a business. Then that's a whole different skill set.
Right.
And it's not something you're necessarily born with. So they're skills that need to be learned. But if you don't have the right people in your corner or the right training available or accessible to you, how can you be effective in what you're trying to do? And so I love the fact that not only is your academy all about helping and supporting, you're actually giving them the sort of way forward and that training that they need to be able to do what it is that they're looking to do. So do you focus on a particular niche at all?
So no, not really. My main skill set is sales. I came out of a sales background, so sales and business growth is probably my bag. But in terms of the way I describe myself, is I'm a managing director with a sales speciality. So what I mean by that is, I understand finance, I understand HR, I understand marketing, I understand operations and those sorts of things, but I don't have an in-depth knowledge on those things. I have a superficial knowledge on those things. Sales, I have an expertise on. However, to run a business, you don't need to have in-depth knowledge of those certain things. You need to have that superficial knowledge so you know what you're talking about. Yeah. And then if you need specialism in it, you bring in an accountant, or you bring in an HR specialist, or you bring in a marketing specialist, or whatever it might be, because actually you can't be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And in my world, that you have people who are business consultants who are operations specialists. You have business consultants who are finance specialists. You have business consultants who are marketing specialists. There's no real such thing as a generalist, but you can't be an expert at everything, but you can have that superficial knowledge about the things that you need to know. So that's kind of what I try to encourage people to think about as well. So, for example, I'm using your knowledge to help me with what I'm producing as well, because I don't know about this stuff. I'm learning as I'm going along, and it's much better to work with somebody who actually really knows what they're talking about, and they can point out the pitfalls and everything else. So that's kind of the way I approach it. And again, when I'm talking to people, I will always signpost them. I'll say, right, okay, this is what you need to do. You can't do that. You have to do it this way. But to make sure it happens this way, this is who you need to speak to. So I will always signpost people to an expert as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think with business, it's learning in plain sight, isn't it? In order to get everything where it needs to be and for it to work, there is an aspect of you've got to learn these things. And like you say, it's at a superficial level, but I think it's really important that people understand the different things that need to happen before they go and outsource.
Yeah.
So, like you say, you know, it's important to bring the right expert in at the right level at the right time, but understanding what needs to happen before that, so that you know that when you are outsourcing a particular sort of job, you know what it is that you're expecting from that person.
Yes.
And the one thing I love about the business community that we're in is that we have so much expertise at our fingertips, you know, through the networking that we go to and the people we meet, and then we collaborate and all of this thing. So being able to kind of use each other's skill base to kind of, you know, help each and every one of us move forward, I think is a real benefit of being a business owner or an entrepreneur, because you get access to that, which is really important. And I think anybody that's coming out and starting a business thinking it's all about me and it needs to be just what I can do, I think very quickly you soon learn that, as you say, you can't be everything to everyone, and you're going to need to pull in other levels of expertise to be able to support your own growth and the growth of your business. And that's essentially what you support with, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll give you a couple of examples. You know, I've got a client I'm working with at the moment, and he's ADHD, and he's quite far down the ADHD spectrum. Organisationally, he's all over the place. He's medicated for the work that to keep the ADHD under control a little bit. But in terms of organisation, it's not something that he can do. He finds it too overwhelming. It's too much of an issue. So what we're doing is we're putting into place somebody who is effectively a VA who can actually help him control his diary, control the conversations, send out quotes, all of those sorts of things. Because actually, in that principle, that's the stuff that he will let go. And actually, it needs to be done, because if he does let it go, his business will struggle, because he needs those things in place. But now with the lady that I'm helping him get there, actually it's really working. It's working for him, and it will work for him in the future. So it is about knowing where your own. It's also about being self-reflective as well. It's knowing where your own strengths and your own weaknesses lie. You know, there are certain things that I'm particularly good at, and there are certain things I absolutely despise. My accountant absolutely loves me because she does all my bookkeeping and she gets all my stuff through. And I'm just like, yeah, go and deal with it, please, because I'm rubbish. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to deal with that. But I understand that about myself, so I don't put any pressure on myself. And where I go is I concentrate on the things that I'm good at, and I bring people in where I'm not so good. So, and I think that self-awareness is quite important as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm exactly the same. I hate accounts. I'm not that way minded at all. So getting the right people in to take care of the stuff that you don't enjoy, I think is really important, because that frees up space to focus in on the things that's actually going to drive you forward. So I think it's really important having that understanding and recognizing it's not a limitation, because it's just distributing your brilliance where it's going to create the most impact in your business. I think is really important.
I'm nick that.
I know, I'm good, aren't I?
Distributing your brilliance.
I kind of, every now and again I'll come out with a line and I'm like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah. That's the title for this podcast, isn't it? Distributing your brilliance.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. Nowhere to put it. So obviously you've got a wealth of experience in business. Now, something that I myself know to be true is that running a business can be exhilarating. There's highs, there's lows, there's everything in between. But there's also that reality that if you are the person at the helm running your business, burnout is a real thing that can happen. Do you have any experience in your years of running a business where you've kind of reached the point where you're like, this is too much. I don't know if I can continue with this anymore.
Yeah. It happened in April 2012. So I was running my family business, and we'd gone through the whole recession, and the business had historic debt, and we went into the recession with historic debt, but we actually managed to sort of like turn things around a little bit and keep the business going and keeping it afloat. But it was a battle. Every day was a battle. Working long hours, and I would go from, you talk about the highs and the lows, I was going from, this is the best challenge I've ever faced, this is incredible, this is amazing, to a nanosecond later when I have a call, this is the worst experience I've ever faced, and I feel like I could just sort of throw it all in, and feel I was at rock bottom. And then in April 2012, something happened. I can't even remember what happened, but something happened, and we were going through the whole thing. And by this point, we had about 12 staff. We were working really, really hard, profitable on paper. But like I say, the profit was servicing historical debt. And I was sat on my computer, and it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I literally just burst into tears. And that was it. And this wasn't a little tear down the cheek kind of thing. This was sobs and wailing. It was pretty horrendous. And my brother came in. By this point, my parents are retired. My brother came in and sort of almost marched me out of the office, put me in the car, and I wasn't able to drive all the way home. I drove and stopped at my parents' place. Stopped with them for an hour, had a cup of tea, got myself calmed down a little bit, and then drove home. The next day I went to the doctors, and I was diagnosed with severe clinical depression. And this is probably, it was such a pivotal moment in my life, because I didn't realise that I had suffered with depression, and on reflection throughout the course of my lifetime, I have, and it's part of me. I accept it's part of me. And then the second thing was, it was just that realization that I wasn't this superhuman person that could carry on, and I didn't quite, until that moment in time, I didn't realize how lonely I was. And I'm not talking about lonely at home. I've got an incredibly supportive wife. I've got a lovely family. It was how lonely I was at work. And even though my brother was brilliant and he was very, very supportive in the business, I was the managing director. I was the one that was dealing with everything. I was the one that was dealing with the staff issues. I was the one that was dealing with the money issues. I was the one that was trying to drive sales through the business. I was the one that was focusing on lots and lots of things with my brother's support. But it all felt like it was weight on my shoulders. And I talk a lot about it's lonely running a business, and It is very, very lonely running a business. And particularly if you're a solo, and you and I, we do that. But if you've got a team of people around you to support you, that's crucial. But if you've got a team of people around to support you who also know about how lonely that feels, that's very powerful, because there's empathy there, there's support there, there's understanding, and that is, again, and when I have conversations like this, you reflect back on it, you think that's probably where the seeds of everything that I'm doing now were started at that particular moment in time. And I recovered. Took me, I think, even now I would say I've had 2 weeks off work, but I actually had 6 weeks off work. It was a very bizarre time, and literally 2 months after that, we actually put the business into liquidation. And the day that happened, it happened because we had a client go down on us, and actually we just couldn't afford to survive. We couldn't survive it. So that at that particular moment, it was a very double-edged sword, because on the one hand, the relief was just unbelievable. It was literally like someone had lifted a millstone from around my neck. And the minute I'd made that phone call to the insolvency practitioner, it was like, oh, thank God for that. Then the next realization was, my parents are now going to lose their house because I've just made that call. And so it was a pretty, like I say, it was a double-edged sword. So you go through these emotions running a business, and actually it's really, really hard. So that was the low point. At the time, I would have turned around to you and said, this is the most horrendous experience I've ever had. Now, what are we, sort of 14 years later, I will turn around to you and say, do you know what? That was the best learning experience ever. So, my mindset has shifted quite dramatically to the point where I now really appreciate that time rather than look back on it as a horrendous experience, which it was. But I learned so much in that time that it gives me that, when I'm working with people, it gives me that opportunity to really empathize and understand exactly where they are. And how you can get out of it. So what I would say to everybody, if you're going through a tough time right now, it will get better. You just have to work on it to get better. It doesn't stay like that forever. So that's something that I do with a lot of people.
Yeah, that I can imagine was a huge learning experience to kind of go through that, and the emotional upheaval as you're dealing with this stuff. Is like I say, that's an incredible experience, a hard one to learn from, but incredible nonetheless, because it's led you to where you are now. Yeah. And I'm a really great believer in things don't just happen for no reason. I think we all have a path that we are set to be on, and that's what leads us. So what you're doing now is most likely a result of that experience that you had, and you needed to have that in order to be able to be where you are today, and have that experience, that wisdom, the emotional intelligence around running a business as well, because that's required, and being able to kind of share the lessons that you've learned from that period of time, and obviously thereafter. So I heard somebody say, which I love, that sometimes you have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen immediately, but when you look back in hindsight, you can start to you can start to map where things started to kind of shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though at the time it feels horrific and like your world is caving in, I think what it's demonstrated is your strength and resilience and agility as well, to be able to kind of get out of that, but also to be where you are today, having gone through that, because that experience alone is enough to break anybody.
Yeah, it did. And it broke me. It did break me, but I got fixed. There was
exactly. It's how you then bounce back.
There was a lot of therapy involved as well. There was a lot of, there's an awful lot of stuff that I went through. But one thing I want to stress is business. Anybody who thinks business is like this nice, smooth growth curve is actually totally delusional, because every business, and I've worked with hundreds of business owners over the years, right? Yeah. And I experienced business myself. Every business goes like this. Right. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing, but every business has its ups and downs. And if you're fortunate, it's like that. If you're not fortunate, it's like that. And it disappears off the page. But it's that thing, and we all go through this. We go through this emotional roller coaster. And when you invest your time, your energy, your heart into your business, you really, really want it to succeed. But you've got to take the peaks and the troughs. Yeah. And what I say to people is, instead of it being like that, try and make it more like that. So your peaks and troughs aren't as big as they potentially could be. And if you've got a focus, and if you've got a direction of where you want to take yourself and what you want to achieve from your business, and if you've got an idea of how to get your business there, and you stick to that plan, then that will help you get to where you want to get to. And if you stay resilient in the things, and you accept the troughs when the troughs come, that you work your way out of those troughs because you can, things do get better, and they do improve. It's just about having that almost like that anchor goal that you need to hit. Yeah. And if you have that thing in mind, and you stay focused on trying to hit that anchor goal and achieve that thing that you really want to do, that's where you get to. So I'm a big one for visions and vision boards and all of those. Yeah. Because actually that just reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing. So when you're in that low point and you look at something that you're thinking, Jesus, is this worth it? You know, the emotional trauma that I'm going through. But if you look at that anchor point, I'm determined to do that. And something you've said to me in the past, Karen, as well, is back yourself. You know, just
100%.
back yourself and believe in what you're doing. And I love that, because actually you do need to back yourself now. And that's what I'm doing with Business Boost Academy. You know, I've put it out there. I've, a very wise lady has explained to me that actually what I should probably have done is done it in bite-sized chunks first. Nod to the nice lady at the other end of the screen right now.
But it's all learning, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this is sometimes we've got to go through these spells of learning to figure out how it needs to be or what needs to happen. And it's never failure as long as you are trying, as long as you're giving it a go. And that's what you've done. We were talking earlier about how you're on version 2.0 of the academy, which is great, because and as I explained to you, so I have a membership called Sell Your Brilliance Online. I've decided to because I want it to be better, I'm going through that next round. So I'm creating version 2.0 at the moment, and that has required me to make some big changes around how the membership is going to be delivered, but it's necessary in order to be able to evolve what it is I'm doing and make it as good as it can be for my members. But that's just part of the journey, isn't it? It's an evolution of our idea, and you need that first draft of your idea to be out so that you have something to improve. And I think that's what you're actively doing, aren't you, in the academy?
Yeah, so so the lessons I've learned, so really, I first went onto the school platform, which some of your listeners may be familiar with, some of them may not. School, when I first came up with the concept of Business Boost Academy, and it evolved to the point where I actually wanted to put something online, because I felt there was a need for small business and micro business owners to get that support online. I was involved in a couple of communities that were functioning on school, and they functioned okay, and they did the job. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to use school. First lesson, I didn't do my due diligence, right? So I didn't look into, I was all in on school because, hey, that's the thing that's working. There was a lot of publicity around it. Alex Hormozy's it's got the profile and everything else. And I thought, you know, I'm going to go for this. As I was building it, the first problem I came across was everything. The videos all had to be stored in YouTube. And I've got like 30 odd hours of content I produced on video. I was thinking, well, okay, that's okay. It could be hosted in YouTube. But then when you watch the video, it goes in, you know, you finish watching the video and the next one that comes up is something on your playlist. So you could be watching a video about business planning and the next minute you've got a video of Metallica coming up, you know, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So that was the first problem with it. And then the second problem with it as well is everything was in dollars because it's a US platform. Everything is in US dollars. So any of my members who want to join this UK-based business platform had to pay in dollars. Now, obviously, I was losing money on the exchange rate and all the other things, but it was a barrier. It was a barrier to people. And then the functionality of it didn't work as much as I wanted it to work. It wasn't as brandable as I wanted it to be. And I became aware of these problems by the time I was actually about to launch it, you know, and I was thinking, well, I put all of this effort, literally 3 months solid work, putting this whole thing together. And I thought, do you know, I'm going to get it out there because I need to get it out there. And that was January 25 that I first launched it. And then I started to reflect. It hadn't taken off the way I wanted it to take off. I started asking questions from people that were involved with it. What's the barriers there? So I started doing my market research, obviously, after I'd launched it. Wrong way round, just so everybody knows. Yes, even business advisors get it wrong every now and then. So I started asking people what were they thinking of it? What do they think of? And I was getting a bit of feedback. And it turned out that the dollar thing was a problem. So, right, okay. So that became one of my things. And then the idea of having something that was native, videos that were native in the platform became a thing. So I then started doing a lot of research into the other platforms, and I know there's hundreds of learning platforms out there. So I decided to ask my good friend ChatGPT, part of my due diligence, and I essentially put together. Now, I've been using Chat for a little while. My chatbot knows exactly about BBA, who it's for, what it's trying to achieve, and all of those sorts of things. So I then sort of started having a conversation with the AI about what platforms would you recommend to do this, that I wanted to achieve this, I wanted to achieve that. And it threw out several different platforms, one of which was System.io, actually. And so I started doing a bit of research around them, looking at the pricing points and everything else. And that's another thing, the pricing points, school was costing me nearly £100 a month. So I was thinking, well, that's a lot of money to be spending. So I started asking Chat about pricing points and membership levels and all of those sorts of things. And I then had a conversation with James West at Only, and I said, because Only were using Heartbeat as a tool, and I started asking him some questions about it, and he was incredibly helpful and said, he was only scratching the surface, but there are a lot more features available to it. So I then went back to ChatGPT and said, what about Heartbeat? Do you think Heartbeat would be able to achieve these things? And it came back with a load of feedback, and there were certain things that I couldn't do on Heartbeat, but there were lots of things that I could do. And actually, the majority of it, everything I wanted to do, I could do. So I invested in Heartbeat. Now, to give you an idea, Chat was costing me, I think it was $100 a month at the time, and Heartbeat was costing me School was costing me $100 a month, and Heartbeat cost me $49 a month.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, right, okay, well that's a $50 savings to start off with. So that's a bonus. And then I started playing around with it. They give you a 14-day trial, so I started playing around with it and realised that actually this is a really, really good platform for me. So around about September time last year, I started redoing everything, reshooting the videos, putting extra content up there, and including different things of ideas that I had that allowed me the versatility Heartbeat allowed me, which School didn't allow me.
School didn't, yeah.
Yeah, so it then sort of evolved and grew, and I'm very happy with version 2. Version 2 is what I envisaged for version 1 but wasn't able to do. So the lessons for me were due diligence, research, and understanding what you're doing, and don't get swept along with the hype, if you like.
Yeah.
It's obviously a lesser known platform than School because of the profile that School has, but don't be swept along with the hype, because there will be something out there that's better. But also use AI. Don't just use it as a copywriting tool or an idea for graphics or whatever. Use AI because it scours the web. It will ask the questions and answer the questions that you want to answer, but you have to be very prescriptive about the type of question you're asking. You have to give it the detail, because then it will give you the feedback that you need. So that was a real sort of pivotal moment for me, is sitting down and going, right, okay, this is the route that I'm going to go down now.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because many moons ago, when I first started out, I built my first course on Kajabi. Yeah. So for about 2.5, 3 years, I was on Kajabi, and I was on the mid-tier, because at that time I was delivering live programs. So I was, cohort of women that I would be teaching, and my on-demand training would be on there, and all of that. So I was an affiliate for the platform, because it's always made sense to me, if I'm in a position where I'm using something and therefore promoting and people are seeing, of course I'm going to be an affiliate for it. But I was paying £160. And then what was happening was that people were signing up for, I think at the time it was something like 110 quid. And when I really sat down and thought about it, I thought, this is ridiculous. It's so much money, and we do not need to be paying this kind of money for just to kind of have our content on a platform for people to access. So that kind of, for me, that sort of really shifted my thinking about the platform, because it was like, Kajabi is a really good platform, and I was drawn to it because of the hype, because that was what all the big gurus in the online space were using and all of that. But then I discovered a platform called MemberVault. And MemberVault was, I forget how much it was, but it was something like 14 quid. And what I liked about MemberVault is that it made content more binge worthy by the way it was set up. So then I decided to move everything from Kajabi to MemberVault, and then I had to go and find an email marketing system, because you need all the email marketing alongside it. And that was a ton of work, but it heavily reduced my costs. And then I felt better about the platform that I was then talking about. And then what I found, and you talk about due diligence, but what I will say is that sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And I moved from Kajabi that had everything to MemberVault that had a lot of functionality, but not as extensive. And then I was doing something where I needed a checkout cart, and MemberVault couldn't give me that. And then I was looking on other platforms, and I'd have to pay a lot of money. And then I came across System. So it's really interesting, the journey, because I didn't know what I needed until that point that I needed it. Yeah. And I think it was like I was running a workshop or something. And in Kajabi, I could do ghost offers, which meant that I didn't have to have content to create an offer. So I could create a checkout for something that didn't kind of tie to content. But I couldn't do that in MemberVault. So then I was like, oh my God, I need this solution for a checkout. And then that's where I came across System. But even with my membership platform, I'm currently on Mighty Networks. I've been on Mighty Networks for just under 2 years. My decision around Mighty Networks was that this is brilliant. I can grow with a platform. I'm not going to pay any more. So I'm paying over £100 at the moment. I'm not going to need to pay anything more, because everything that I need is within it. So I've just got to focus on growing my membership. But then nearly 2 years later, they've made a ton of changes, which means that at some point I may lose my API access, which I need to connect to other platforms. And then I've got to upgrade to the £220 tier. I don't want to pay £220. And I made a decision based on, at that moment in time, what the platform was going to give me was what I needed. And now, nearly 2 years later, it's like I can see myself getting into quite hot water, because if they start taking things away from me, because now I'm on a legacy plan, I'm going to be forced to upgrade because I'm on this platform. So now the platform I've now chosen, my version 2.0 of my membership, is half the cost, but now it gives me all that functionality that I was looking for at the beginning. But 2 years ago, it didn't have. Mm-hmm. So it's one of these things that not only do our requirements change as we evolve, but also the solutions out there are constantly evolving as well. And with Mighty Networks, now they've redone their tiers very differently. So, and if you do want to connect your platform up with your email system and all of that, you are going to have to pay a hefty amount. Yeah. They've taken that away from the tier that I was originally on. So you're going to so when it comes to choosing the right platforms for what you're wanting to do, doing that due diligence, I think, is really important, but also knowing that where you're going to be 2 years' time is going to be in a completely different place, but also the platform that you're on as well, they've evolved and they may be offering different stuff as well. It's a really tricky one because, things are changing all the time and you just don't know what you don't know until you're in a place where you're like, oh, okay, now I know.
But I think as well, it's so true what you say. So with Heartbeat, I'm on the bottom tier right now. I'm on the basic tier. There are 2 further tiers that I can go to.
Yeah.
So the £49 a month is sufficient for what I need right now. £129 a month or $129 a month is the next tier up, and then they've got a done for you tier, which is probably $1,200 a month or something like that. But there is evolution there. There's evolution within the platform. The one thing I really loved about Heartbeat was the support there. I think I've told you before, Karen, I'm not exactly the most technical individual in the world. So I loved the fact that there was really good support within Heartbeat. The other thing as well is that support is they do videos that will actually walk you through the whole process. So if you're trying to do something, I was trying to set up an affiliate program the other day, and I've watched this video that actually walked me through how to do the affiliate program. And I think a lot of these people are, and that video is run by the person that's founded Heartbeat. And the nice thing about that is you actually feel like you're really looked after. And even though it's virtual space, even though I've never spoken to this fella and he's over in the States or wherever it is, you know, I feel like that there's that care there. You can ask a question, you get a response back within 24 hours, you know, so you can respond to that. And that's really important. The thing for me was I was spending nearly $100 a month on school, and then I was doing all of the other stuff on top. And when you're formulating when you're putting something together like this, you want to try and keep your costs down as much as possible, because I'm bootstrapping it. I'm paying for it through my one-to-one work that I'm doing with people. So I want to try and keep my costs down as much as I possibly can. So what I ended up doing was, again, looking at it and thinking, okay, being mindful of the costs. When I did it to start off with, I didn't really give that a second thought.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've learned is, you know, it's not just the fact that I've got the Heartbeat platform, it's the fact that I record everything on Zoom, it's the fact that I edit it all in Canva. So really, for me to make Business Boost Academy work, I've got a tech stack there that I've got to pay for. So actually, whilst it's costing me £49 a month, it's not. It's actually costing me near £79 a month. That's $49 a month. It's actually costing me near 79 quid a month for doing everything that I'm doing. So you sit there, and it's about keeping your costs as low as you possibly can to make sure these things are happening. Now, I use Zoom and Canva all the time. I use it for when I'm working with clients and everything else, but it has become the platform that I'm recording a lot of stuff on. I record my podcasts on there. I record the educational videos that I do on there. So Zoom is something that I'm constantly involved with, and it does what I need it to do at the moment. Now, should things go very well with BBA, and I've no reason to believe that they won't, but should things go really well with BBA, I might have to redress that further down the line. I might need more functionality. I might need something that does stuff better. But at the moment, it's good enough. And that's something else I would say to people who are aspiring to do something. There's no such thing as perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. Perfection basically leads to procrastination. So essentially, if you are in a position where you're doing something, if it's good enough, do it, because it's good enough.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely, 100% agree with that. I just want to, you're making such a great point there, because it's so easy to get hung up on having everything perfect before you even get anything out into the world.
Yeah.
And I think you make a really good point, because as I think both you and I have demonstrated, where we were 2 years ago or a year ago to where we are now, we've needed to make changes. So even if at that point we thought what we had was, you know, what it needed to be in order to launch, I think it's very clear that both of us have gone through an evolution, and things have shifted, and where we are right now is different. And that is part of the process. So the more you hold yourself back and you wait for everything to be perfect, like I say, all you're doing is stopping yourself getting what is needed out into the world, and you're actually stopping yourself going through that growth, because it's never going to be perfect. And I think it's probably safe to say that, and you've touched upon this, where you're probably going to be in the future when BBA does, you know, because it will, like you say, you've got to back yourself. This is a brilliant idea. There's no reason why you cannot scale it and get it to where you want it to get to. When things start to change, that's when you can then start to look at whether or not Heartbeat is right, or whether you have to evolve your tech stack further. I don't think that ever stops. I think whatever level you're at, you've got to start where you're at, and then you've got to shift as you shift. So I don't think you're not going to know where you're going to be in a year's time. So how can you how can you sort of, you know, make those decisions around what you're going to need? The best thing I think anybody can do is, if you've got an idea, get it out into the world and let it be messy. Messy is powerful, because messy allows you to start learning and to get that knowledge that you need to be able to refine and evolve the thing that you're working on. So I just wanted to kind of jump in there, because you make such a brilliant point about the whole procrastination thing. And I think that is something that we can all be guilty of, but we have to also be mindful of, are we not taking action because something is stopping us? And if what is stopping us is preventing us growing, could it be down to ourselves, not necessarily the tech or the stuff that you think you need to make this happen? Because often it does start with us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think as well, there are a couple of things that spin off that as well. So the first thing is that when you're putting content together, you are literally putting yourself out there. You know, you're putting your IP, you're putting your thoughts, you're putting your ideas out there into the world. And that's scary, because we do naturally, as human beings, we doubt ourselves and everything else. And there's also an element of confidence that, crikey, you know, what are people going to think of this? You know, this is me, this is my knowledge, and I'm putting it out there for the world to see. And that's quite a scary thing to do. So that was, for me, a barrier that I had to overcome. And it was people telling me, Steve, you're good. You talk so much common sense. You've helped me massively within your business. You've done this, you've done that. I've got a raft of testimonials. But it doesn't matter how many people tell you you're great. You just have that little devil sat on your shoulder saying, you're not really that great, actually. Don't be, someone's going to shoot you down.
Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are?
Don't get above yourself. Don't get above your station. So you've always got that little negative doubt in your mind. What you have to do is just have to brush that off and actually think, right, do you know what? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to. And so that was a big thing for me. The second thing as well is people will say to you, oh, well, you failed the first time you put it out there. You know, it didn't fly. Well, I don't like the word fail. To me, fail means first attempt in learning. And that's kind of the way that I look at failure. I don't think of it as a thing. I think we all make mistakes. As long as we're able to reflect on those mistakes and we're able to learn from those mistakes, then it's not a failure. So failure is a word that I don't really use. And I think, you know, we're conditioned in life to avoid failure. You know, right from the time when, we've talked about this, but right from the time when you're 11 years old and you sit an exam at school to decide whether you go to a grammar school or whether you go to a secondary school or whatever, which is where it was when I was at school. That's how old I am. But you have this thing. You fail your driving test. You do these various different things. So fail has got this real negative persona around it. But actually, what we have to do is in business, we have to take that mindset and go, no, it's actually not failure. It's the first attempt in learning what I'm doing. You know, I'm doing this out here now. I've set businesses up. I've never set an online business up before. So I'm going to make mistakes. As long as I learn from those mistakes, happy days. And I made mistakes with the school platform, but actually, and I've probably made mistakes with the Heartbeat platform, but I will learn as I'm going on and, you know, take this sort of 3-4 years down the line, particularly to the point where you're in a much more confident position. You know what you're doing. You know the tech that's available. You know in your mind's eye how you're going to evolve your business and where you're going to take it. You're a few years ahead of me in this space, and actually that's brilliant. But it's, again, for me, it's then tapping into people who I like in my network, like yourself, and say to you, right, Karen, I'm going through this at the moment. What do you reckon? And then using your knowledge and your help to guide me on the path. And I'm not too proud to ask people's opinions on stuff. You know, and that's something else that I think is really, really important. So yeah, don't worry about failing and don't worry about putting yourself out there, because actually we all need to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing about entrepreneurship. I think if you want to have a successful business, you have to I don't think it's about developing a thick skin, because I don't really believe in that. But what I do feel is that you have to have that inner belief in yourself and know that you're on a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Because it is all about learning. Everything is about learning, and I don't think you ever get to a place where you think you know it all. I think there's just more learning to be had. And I think being that sort of ever evolving student that is open to learning what is necessary. And I know for myself, when I started 5 years in the online business space, when I kind of moved over into the space, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew, I had a gut instinct that I needed to talk about the thing that was making me money at the time, which was an online course during COVID. And the conversations that I was having very much were about people not making money because they couldn't see their clients in person. And that just opened up an opportunity. But I think they were put on my path for a reason, to make me see things differently. And so I didn't fail at my branding studio. The fact that I decided to shift and pivot, if anything, that was a stepping stone to where I'm at now. And I learned the foundations of how to run a business through that time of running my branding studio, which I absolutely loved. So I think we have to be open in business to constantly learn, and also recognize the fact that we are not masters in everything, and we need to be open to what can happen and what is available to us, and opportunities that are sitting right in front of us as well. Because sometimes I think, and I have these conversations with people where they can't, they're so focused on their one direction, but they can't see necessarily what is right in front of them. And that's where, people like you and I, we step in and say, oh, have you thought about this? Could be great for you because it opens up this for you. But I think business is all about sort of learning and being on that sort of journey. And I shared a quote with you last week, didn't I? Where at the moment I'm listening to Marie Forleo's Everything is Figure Outable. And she's got a brilliant quote where she says, you either win or you learn, but you never fail.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think is really important for people to understand and recognize. You're not going to fail all the while that you're kind of, you're doing what you're doing. Because we do worry. It can be this thing that holds people back because they don't want to fail. But also one thing I know to be true, and I'm listening to a lot of, so on Instagram at the moment, we're getting these trial reels. So we are being fed content that, from people that we are not following because they're obviously trying this stuff out. So I've had a lot of motivational reels land on my feed, which I'm loving because I'm all over that. But I was listening to Mark Zuckerberg last week, and he was talking about Facebook and saying that Facebook was not his first attempt. He had created lots of things before Facebook even came around. He'd created chat rooms and communities and games and tech. It's just that Facebook took off. So when we think we're failing because our first attempt hasn't worked, actually what we're doing is we are just learning what is necessary to move us closer to when it will work. But we have to keep at it, and that's the point.
You look at every really successful business person, right? Depends what you define success. A lot in the Western world, we define success as money. Personally, I don't, but actually that's kind of what's perceived as success. Someone like Richard Branson, for example, has probably had more businesses fail than have succeeded. And Alan Sugar's the same. These guys, these are people who really know business inside out, and they've done very, very well for themselves in that side of things. And yet they have these failures, and it doesn't matter which entrepreneur you speak to, which highly successful entrepreneur you speak to. They've all kind of been through that sort of same process where they've had stuff that hasn't worked, but what they've done is they've taken what hasn't worked, they've understood why it hasn't, and then they've gone from there. So, you've got to learn.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't there? There's a million business books out there, but actually the best way you're going to learn is by taking action and doing.
Yeah,
And you can't
absolutely.
beat that. No business book is going to give you the insights that you're going to get from taking action and giving something a go.
Yeah,
And for those of my listeners, I'm at the start of creating an event that is going to take place later in the year. I've got this vision of a 3-day summit that's going to happen online. I've never created a summit before. Don't know what goes into a summit. I'm in the planning stages at the moment, so I'm figuring some stuff out. I'm absolutely terrified because it's going to require so much of me that maybe I've not yet kind of come across, but I'm open to learning. And because I will learn and I'll take action, I can guarantee that event's going to take place, but it's going to be a learning curve, and
yeah,
I'm open to that. And I think it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're launching an academy, you're creating an online course, you're creating digital products, you're running a group program for the first time. The best way that you can learn and the best way you can achieve success is just by taking action.
yeah.
And all of those things, all those what you deem as failures, they're not going to be failures. They're going to be lessons that you can then use to move your stuff forward. And I think that is the point. We have to be open to that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We never develop and progress by staying in our comfort zone.
100%.
So, Stephen Bartlett did a thing on Diary of a CEO and talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, which is a concept that we all hear and we hear over and over again. People talk about imposter syndrome. And again, it has that very sort of like negative connotation behind it. But actually, if you really want to grow, you have to take yourself outside of that comfort zone. And for all those people that are running their own businesses, well, firstly, big shout out to you, because you've done that. You've taken yourself out of that comfort zone. You've gone from having maybe a secure job that pays a nice pension, that pays holiday pay and all of that sort of stuff that goes with it, and a decent salary and security and everything else, to putting yourself to a point where you're actually out there earning your own money, where you don't get holiday pay, you don't get that job security and all of those sorts of things. And actually, that is taking yourself outside of the comfort zone. Yeah. So actually, what you've got to do is you've got to continue that. You've got to continue to drive. And I'm not saying you do it in a ridiculous way. You know, you're not something, for example, you're not somebody who's like a mindset specialist, and then you're going to go and become a plumber. I'm not saying that that's what you do, but what you do is you have to evolve and you have to develop and you have to sort of like really grow yourself and put faith in yourself to do that. And the only way that you can do that is by taking yourself outside of that comfort zone. And I've done it. You know, I did it by putting myself up online. I've done it by, even if it's something little, like doing something for your social media and actually recording yourself on video for the first time. I remember the first time I did that, I was absolutely bricking myself. I don't know how long it took me to shoot like a 2-minute video, but it was well over 2 hours. And then I edited it, and I've got to take the ums and the ers out and everything else. And then I sat there and I realized that actually, you know, having this completely polished video it isn't right, because when I talk, I use and and I swear a lot, and I do all these sorts of various different things. That's fine. That's me. That's who I am. That's authentic me. You have to sort of like move yourself outside of that comfort zone to do that. Business Boost Academy for me is a massive shift in what I'm doing, in terms of how I'm presenting myself, but in terms of what I'm delivering, it's not. So the content that's being delivered is content that I talk about all the time on a day-to-day basis with people that I work with. But actually, in terms of how it's being delivered, is very, very different. And the only thing that's taking me outside of comfort zone, instead of my market being this big, my market is this big.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's the fundamental difference between the two. But it's that whole thing. You have to do that to evolve.
Absolutely. I think it's really important. And I think it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're an online business, a service-based business, you're a coach or whatever, in order to be able to, achieve any level of success, it's going to require so much from you to be able to put that work in. Have you heard of the be do have model, where it's who do you need to be to have what you want, because who you are right now is not going to be that person. So what I mean by that is, who do you need to be able to step into that space of creating that life or business that you want? What characteristics do you need to have? How do you need to show up? How, like your mindset, all of this. And I think the one thing about being an entrepreneur, it's self-reflecting. You cannot grow personally or in your business if you don't have that self-reflection, if you're not aware of how you're showing up and how you're being. And are you a leader? Are you being the leader in your business? Because I think that's a question that equally needs to be asked when you're wanting to grow or get success, because we need to be the people that are leading from the front and not the back. And what I mean by that is not allowing things to get in the way where you stay stuck. So are you being that leader that is taking control so that you can actually move your business to where you want to get it to? And I think these are, the important questions that we need to ask ourselves on a regular basis, because if we're not achieving what we want to achieve, why is that? Mm-hmm. And having that self-reflection, because often it is us that's kind of getting on our own way. It's not the tech. It's not the lack of money. It's not the lack of time. We say it is because it's easy to blame something else. More often not, in my experience, when I see people holding themselves back, it's none of those things. It's down to the fact that they're in their own head and they're not taking control and being the leader that they need to be to move themselves forward. Yeah. And I think when it comes to running a business, I think you need to be in the driving seat. And I guess that's what they're going to get from your academy, isn't it?
Yeah, you make so many good points in that's what you've just said there. And actually, it's when you work, again, it's a mindset thing. When you work for yourself by yourself, you don't necessarily see yourself as a leader in your own business. You see yourself as a person that's delivering. You know, you're delivering content, you're delivering service, you're delivering materials, or whatever it might be. That's what you see yourself as. But actually, when you're running your own business, what you are is you are your marketing department. You are your sales department. You are your operations department. You are your HR department in some respects. Even though you're a one-person business, you are still having to look after your health, which is what I mean by the HR side of things. Yeah. Then the other thing is you are the managing director of your business. You are the business owner. And you have to put that hat on. You almost have to allocate time to yourself in your diary to do the things to drive your business forwards, to make your business happen. So you have to lead in your own business, and that's the thing. And it's true what you say. It's about having an understanding that there are these different areas of the business. Now, one of the things that I do with people, and it's within Business Boost Academy, is I talk to people a lot about planning. And when people say to me, how do I plan for my business? How do I plan for my growth? The simple way to do it is you break it down. So what you do is you sit there and you think of your business as a series of different departments. Think of what your main target goal is, and think about what all of those departments need to do to hit your main target goal. And then you sort of break it down, and then you're responsible for making sure that those departments are doing the things they need to do. Now, it might be that you're dividing yourself several ways to be able to do that, but actually it works, because what you do is you reverse engineer back from that main goal and do it in bite-sized chunks. And if you're always working towards that main goal, what will happen is you'll get business growth. You'll get business growth in the direction that you want it to go. And it might sound really kind of simplistic to do it, but I've seen it succeed so many different times, particularly for people who are the person that's running and owning their own business. It gives them that ability to sort of compartmentalize their thought process in various different things. Well, today I'm working on marketing. Today I'm doing sales. Today I'm doing delivery. And I'm working towards this sort of particular thing that I'm actually aiming for. So yeah, and that's what Business Boost Academy does, is it gives people that opportunity and those skills to be able to try and run their business in a way that thinks not like a micro business working from home, going out feeding the dog, walking the dog, even feeding the children, putting a roof, all of the things that that go through the day-to-day side of things. It gives you that ability to be able to sit and recognize yourself as a business owner. And the number of people I say, I just work for myself, I'm just a freelancer. No, you're a business owner. Okay, so your business is a one-person business, but you are a business owner. Yeah, but I'm only turning over maybe £30,000 a year, but you're still a business owner. And giving people that belief and that confidence in themselves that that's what they're doing. But you could be doing £30,000. You doing 30,000, but you could be doing £100,000 if you structure it in the right sort of way.
Yeah. So I think self-identity is really important, and I think, and the way you kind of frame, like say, what you're doing, I think is really important. So it sounds what you offer. I know so many people that would just benefit by it, because we don't know what we don't know until somebody like you steps forward and says, have you thought of? So if somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, Steve, you sound great, you sound exactly what it is that I need right now, how can they get access to the Academy?
So the first thing really is, if you want to check it out, the website is businessboostacademy.co.uk. That's just the website. That just explains what Business Boost Academy is. The actual platform sits within Heartbeat, and from the website there's a link. But I think, Karen, you've got an affiliate link that you can use as well. So
and I will also pop the link with the show notes. So I will share that as well, so people can obviously join from the show notes. Yeah.
So if you join from Karen's link, then actually you'll get a discount on it as well. So that's something that's worth thinking about. But if you wanted to sort of be part of it, you can contact me through the website. I'm available on LinkedIn. There's not many Steve Bridsons on LinkedIn, particularly with a face that's this ugly and old. But I've always said I've got a face for radio. I love these podcasts. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me also on Facebook as well. But generally speaking, probably the best way is through the website and that side of things. Or if you want to email me directly, my email is steve@businessboostacademy.co.uk.
Brilliant. Yeah. And like I say, I will pop all that in the show notes. Now, before we finish, because I know we've been sort of chatting for a little while, what's one small but powerful action that somebody could take today that will help them to move forward in their business? Do you have a top tip that you can share?
So, I do. So for me, the biggest thing that anybody can have within their business is knowing and understanding their numbers. Now, what do I mean by knowing your numbers? I'm not talking about your accountancy numbers here. Your accountancy numbers are historic. They come out once a year or whatever it is. I'm talking about knowing how many clients you have, knowing the average order value of a client, knowing how many calls you need to make to convert to a client, all of those kind of statistics that you have. And you can put numbers in every aspect of your business. You can put numbers in your operational time. How long does it take from a job to the time you're recruited to a job to the time you're delivering a job? Or how long does it take for you to go from having initial conversation with somebody to actually delivering a job? And the reason why those numbers are important is they allow you to plan, and they allow you to measure, how you're improving. So let's take marketing as an example. Right, if you're marketing your business and let's say you're getting, 150 hits on your website, and then you send out an email newsletter, and then you notice that you're getting 175 hits on your newsletter, then obviously your newsletter is working. Now, what you don't do is you don't do loads of changes, because you don't know what change is going to improve it. But actually, if you do one little change and then you see an improvement, then you know that works. Then if you do another little change or something else and you see another improvement, then you know combined the two things are working. If you do another change and you see it drop off, then you know that last thing hasn't worked properly for you. So that's what I mean about knowing your numbers. It's about understanding what is working for you in your business to help you grow your business. Understanding what your average order value is. It might be that your average order value, let's say for ease of numbers, is £500, right? And then you do something and you put your prices up by 10%, and then all of a sudden your average order value is £550, and then you put your prices up, and you know how many orders you're getting on a monthly basis, then you put your prices up a little bit further, your average order value goes up, but actually the number of orders you're getting comes down. You've gone too far. You've gone too far in the price increase. So it's about knowing all those little nuances within your business, and the only way you can do that is by measuring it. So for me, knowing your numbers is absolutely critical when running a business. And with all of the people that I work for, we start putting KPIs together and really getting people to drill down and understand exactly what's going on within their business.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, actually. And I think, I think the numbers across the board, your marketing numbers, your finance numbers, all of that, because you can't grow what you can't measure.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to be really mindful of that. And actually, when I first started many moons ago, I wished that I had that advice, to be honest with you. I think because it would have given me such great sort of in-depth knowledge now. Do you know what I mean? I think for me, I spent the first couple of years trying to figure stuff out, not really knowing if I was doing it right and just giving it a go. And, I was making money, but, it could have been so much easier. And I think what you do is so important, because you're helping people to just figure things out early on, so that they can focus on the growth and the important stuff earlier than maybe somebody that's kind of been running a business for quite a long time but still figuring it out. So you're actually giving this insight and guidance when they need it the most. And I think it doesn't matter at what stage of your business you're at, having that guidance is always going to help. Because there's always something to figure out, or to get better at, or maybe something that you're not doing that you need to be doing, or whatever. So that's where you come along and really give that guidance to support your audience. So it's so important and highly valued. So well done on that, and well done for launching Business Boost Academy, because it sounds absolutely brilliant. And I think it's going to serve a lot of people and have that impact that I know that you want to create. So well done with that.
Thank you. And the thing is, with Business Boost Academy, it will evolve as time goes on. There's going to be more content that's going to be added onto it as time goes on. As people say to me, can we have a video about this, please? Or can we have a video about that? The videos will get added in as it evolves. And what I want to do is I want it to be a fantastic resource for people to be able to use. And it's not just about having the videos, the educational videos, it's signposting them to podcasts, like your podcast, for example, signposting them to podcasts where there's useful information that people can take on, signposting them to books that they can read, signposting them to, articles or anything. It's all about trying to help and guide people and take them on a journey to actually believe in themselves. And that the one message I'd like to leave with, and this is speaking to those people who are watching this, who are maybe at the beginning of their journey, but then they look at somebody who's running what they perceive to be a really, really successful business. They might have 50 staff, they might be running the business, and they might on the outside be driving a very nice car, living in a very nice house, and everything else. I promise you, that individual that you're looking up to is going through the same things you're going through, right? The big difference is that their problems are just 10 times bigger than your problems, and their challenges are just 10 times bigger than your challenges. And actually, they're still going through it, because it's everybody who runs business, regardless of where you're at, they're dealing with a different set of problems, but there are still challenges and problems that they're facing. So please don't feel you're alone, because actually we all go through this whole thing as part of this wonderful, colourful thing we call life. And I would say that and leave that as a message. So don't put these people on too much of a pedestal and think that they're wonderful and they're achieving because they're doing so much psychologically better than you are. They're still struggling in the same way that you're struggling as well.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody, I think, at any stage is going to have challenges and stuff. And also just, you know, because you make a really great point there. And I know this is something that is quite rife in business, is that, you know, we compare, but you can't compare somebody's apples against somebody's pears. You know, you can't compare somebody's 10 years in business to your 2 years. Just focus on your own lane and like you say, get that goal in place, map out your plan, join Business Boost Academy, and you'll be flying.
It will change your life.
It'll change your life. Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your words of wisdom. This has been absolutely brilliant. As I said, I will share Steve's details in the show notes, so please do go have a look, check out the Academy, and thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karen, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope it gave you some clarity and sparked new ideas for your business. If you found this helpful, please do share it with a friend or a fellow entrepreneur who is also building their business online, because it might be exactly what they need to hear today. And if this episode has you thinking, okay, I'm ready to start turning my expertise into income, then I would love to invite you to join my free community, the Digital Creators Hub. Inside, you'll get access to free tools, resources, monthly masterclass replays, and you'll be the very first to hear about my upcoming workshops. Head on over to www.sellyourbrillianceonline.com/community. I will be back next week with another episode, but until then, have a great rest of your week. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Online Business Uncovered. If today's conversation has sparked an idea or gave you a dose of clarity, then please make sure to check out the show notes for all the links and resources mentioned. New episodes land every Thursday, so hit follow or subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you're loving the show, a quick rating or review goes a long way in helping more brilliant entrepreneurs like you find this show. Until next time, keep showing up, keep sharing your brilliance, and remember, freedom in business is possible, and it starts with taking the next right step.